So our next guest is Rosey Lee. And oh, someone asked, how did they get Priscilla's book? And Priscilla, I'm going to say this, Priscilla's website is isaywhoiam.com. So we go to isaywhoiam.com and you'll be able to get the book. Or I'm sure they're probably also on Amazon. So normally Rhonda handles that back end stuff for me, and she's not here right now. So I'm having to do double duty. But I want to welcome Rosey Lee to Black Authors Matter TV. And she has a brand new book that just came out last Tuesday called The Gardins of Edin. And it's a play on words, so to speak, because the word garden and Eden are spelled differently. So, Rosey, welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Okay. And do you have a copy of your book?
I do.
Okay, The Gardens of Eden. That's what I was telling people. Gardens yes. Has an I and Eden has an I. So yes. I'm going to assume, and I'm going to see if I'm correct, that Gardens is a family name.
That's right. It's about the Garden family that lives in the fictional town of Edin, Georgia.
Eden. Okay, so it's a town. Edin
yes.
is a town. So there was there is an Edin, North Carolina.
Oh, really? And is it spelled the usual way, Eden?
No. It might be spelled Eden. It's a small town with like you know how some small towns is one family and extended family, and that's basically everybody's cousins. It's kind of like that. So my brother-in-law's family is from there. And,
okay.
And he a lot of his formative years were there. But I've been seeing your book all over social media.
That makes me happy to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, and somebody had one of your box, your book box that with
promo boxes, yes.
The promo box. So I've been seeing it everywhere. So the word is getting out, and it's a brand new book. So how is it doing so far?
Well, you know, today just makes 1 week, so I don't have any real numbers yet. But for me, the fact that you're telling me that you've been seeing it a lot that's very reassuring. So I am just hoping and praying for the best, and we'll wait and see. But you know, it's all about finding the readers who need this story. It's a heartwarming story. I think it's perfect for this time of year. It follows the Garden family from Christmas to Easter. So it really transition. There's an important scene even around MLK Day. So again, just perfect for this time of year. It's perfect to warm your heart on these cold days.
Okay, now is it a hardcover or paperback?
Paperback, but it's also available as an ebook and audiobook. Okay. And it's available everywhere books are sold.
Okay. Now, what made you decide that you wanted your storyline to start at Christmas and end at Easter?
You know, Christmas is my favorite time of year. And is it? Yeah. And so I just imagine this family, so the Garden family owns a multi-million-dollar peanut company. And so they have a fabulous party every year at Christmas. So Edin is a fictional town. It's about 30 minutes or so from Macon, Georgia. So it's a rural area, but the family and their party, everybody knows about it. So people come from far and wide, even from Atlanta, to come to this fantastic party. And so as I was thinking about the book and thinking about the setting, I actually happened to go to a Christmas party. And when I walked up, I said, this is exactly what it looks like. And so that just told me that I was on to something, and I just took it in and ran with it.
Okay, because I don't know if I've ever, and I'm an avid reader, but I don't know if I've read a book that went from Christmas to Easter.
Oh, really?
I don't recall reading another story like that. So that, you know, it differentiates your storyline from others. Now, is this your first novel?
This is my debut. That's right.
Okay, that's what I thought. And who's your publisher?
Waterbrook, which is an imprint of Penguin Random House.
Random House. Okay. All right. Well, how difficult was it for you as a debut author to get the attention of the right person at Penguin Random House or your imprint?
Sure. So, it took some time. So my book is a family story. It's a multi-generational story about these four women. But their names are Ruth, Naomi, Mary, and Martha. So if that sounds familiar, it's because yes, they're biblical names. And my characters, and now this story is set in present day, but my characters are loosely inspired by women of the Bible. And so just growing up, growing up, but also now in present day, listening to sermons and doing, Bible study and things. I just always, every time I read stories in the Bible, I wonder, well, what happened afterwards? I love stories, particularly stories about people and conflict and just wondering how things work out. And so every time I read these stories, I wonder what happened. And so I made it up, but I put it in the setting of a contemporary Black Southern family. And so, it was written with the intention that people who are Christians who know the story, as well as people who may not be Christian, but who enjoy stories about family, particularly family dramas or heartwarming stories or stories that have a happy ending, that they would all like it. And so that's important because there's kind of a movement within some Christian fiction houses to do more crossover work. But a lot of people just, I think, were a little bit nervous because it really is a story that can be embraced by the mainstream as well as Christians. And I think some agents and editors just didn't know how to handle that.
Okay. So which is your book Christian fiction, women's fiction? How is it
It's both.
categorized?
It's
So
actually
when they're promoting it, they're
Mhm.
using those
They're actually using both. And so the first category is women's fiction, the second one is Christian fiction. And that was an intentional decision, I believe, by the publishing house. Because of course it has Christian themes. Certainly the characters are again loosely inspired by women of the Bible. My characters pray, they go to church. But otherwise it's really just a family story. And so my book really takes cues from other popular books and TV shows that have a faith-based foundation, but that have been embraced by general market readers and people who watch TV.
Okay. All right. Right. So, your town of Edin,
Mhm.
what made you decide to do a fictional town as opposed to an actual?
Sure. So there is actually a town in Georgia called Edin, Georgia. And so it's a little ways from Savannah. And so because I made up the history of this town, I didn't want to upset anybody in the actual town. So in thinking about the inspiration for this town, for me, it came from wondering what would happen if actual towns in our country that were founded by previously enslaved people were allowed to thrive. So I think about places like Roberts Settlement in Indiana, in Eatonville in Florida. If they were allowed to thrive, and if the people who founded them were allowed to just live their best lives instead of dealing with some of the barriers and challenges that were put in place because they were founded by people of color. I wondered, what would those towns be like? What would their descendants be doing? How successful would they be? And so, again, my book is an exploration of that question.
Okay. So, what's your background and what led you to write this book?
Sure. So my alter ego is a physician. And that's important. Well, I say that because Rosey Lee is a pen name. And so I love stories, but also because of what I do, or should I say what my alter ego does in her everyday life. There's a lot of work around health education and really helping people to understand what types of decisions that they should make to live healthier lives. I thought, well, maybe we should be a bit more creative about how we package these stories. And certainly my book isn't the first one to have themes around health. That's not something new, but it's my spin on it.
Okay. Now we have one of our readers says she's reading the book now.
Oh, great.
Janelle Lohman, and she says she loves getting lost in the story. And
Oh, I love that.
well done. So it's good to get some feedback from people who are reading the book. And uh, someone else said a beautiful cover.
Oh,
And
great. Thank you.
oh, Edin, North Carolina. I knew that Bernita Francine. I knew there was an Edin, North Carolina.
Mhm.
So because my brother-in-law's family is from there. So
Mm.
um, but you do it with an I, so that makes it different.
I did it with an I, again, just to set it apart from Eaton, Georgia.
Now, what kind of medicine or what's your area of specialty as an alter
My
ego?
alter ego is an internal medicine and a preventive medicine physician.
Okay, okay.
So
So,
internal medicine is seeing patients one-on-one, but the
mhm,
preventive medicine and public health piece, the way my alter ego does it is around community health consulting. So really helping nonprofit organizations, government entities, philanthropic organizations with health programs, around planning those programs, implementing them, and evaluating them. And so again, a lot of the work is around health education and trying to figure out just how to reach people to meet them where they are. And so for me, it's bigger than just something to write about or something to do for a living. For me, this is just a part of, I call it really more of a calling or a vocation. And so for me, that's why it was, hey, let's think about, again, different ways that we can reach people. People don't want to be preached to. People don't want to be preached to about health. People don't want to be preached to about Bible characters either. But I feel like really with both ways, if you can tell a good story, maybe people can learn something that they can use in their everyday lives. And so that's what I'm trying to do through this book.
okay. So that's a departure from your 9 to 5, so to speak.
Mhm,
We get a lot of people who are in all kinds of professions, engineering.
mhm,
A lot of lawyers are writing books.
mhm,
Some are historians who want to take a crack at fiction. So,
mhm.
did you find the writing of the book allow you to relax in terms of taking a step away from your profession to think about something different as a story?
Certainly, but in a way. So I can tell you that my alter ego has been told that she writes really good notes about patients because there's, when you walk in to see a doctor and a doctor asks you, what brings you in today? How long has that on? They are building a story that they write down in the chart for themselves, but also for the next physician who may see you, whether it's one of their partners who may be covering for them, or if you happen to go to the emergency department, that doctor who may see their notes. So that is called the history of present illness. And so I've always been told, you write a really nice one, but also usually really long. But that's because I'm telling a story. I want people to understand what it is that's happening. And so what I can say is through writing this book, I felt kind of similar. You're building up, you are explaining what the problem is, you're telling the details that support it. And by the time the person finishes reading it, they should have some idea of what may be going on, so that they have some clues about in your physical exam. And that's not the exact same thing that readers experience, but I think add up a story, their readers' minds start to wonder and they're thinking, I bet I know what's going to happen next. Either this or this. And so for me, it's not the same thing, but it's kind of borrowing from that same skill set.
Okay. So you're already kind of sort of telling stories, but they're actual factual stories on a day-to-day
Exactly,
basis.
exactly. Mhm. And when people are in the hospital and they see doctors on rounds, the doctors are telling a story. It's about putting that story together in a way that's succinct so that people understand it. So again, it's not the same thing, but I can tell you that during my alter ego's medical training and her time teaching, she really worked on that storytelling. And I think, again, it's kind of been helpful with this novel.
Now, are any of your characters, the four main characters, are any of them physicians?
One of them is, her name is Martha.
Okay.
So there are four characters. So I mentioned that already. So you've got Ruth. Ruth runs the family's multi-million-dollar peanut business. So her husband, Bo, I couldn't call him Boaz because, present day, that would be a rather unusual name. But her husband, Bo,
B-O
has
or B-A-U?
B-E-U, yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes. So her Bo has passed away. Um, with his passing, Ruth has taken over his position as CEO of the family's multi-million-dollar peanut business. Then her younger cousin by marriage is Martha, who's the physician. Martha is not happy at all that Ruth is running the business, and she's also not happy about Ruth's status in the family or in the community at large. So Martha has a sister named Mary. Mary really just wants to run her new restaurant, which focuses on healthy comfort food, healthy and delicious comfort food. So she really specializes in plant-based foods, but that really tastes tasty. But Martha keeps pulling her into the family drama, so Mary's not happy about that. And then Naomi, who is their aunt who raised them after their parents died, she is the peacemaker in the family, and she's really just tired of holding the family together. And so she tells them, you've got to just figure out how to do this. So all the women have secrets that they're dealing with, and they're also having to struggle with truths that they haven't been admitting to themselves.
Okay. Now, did you develop your title, or
I did.
Okay, so you presented your book with the title that you had.
I did, yes.
And it's a play on words, so that really is memorable, because a lot of times with book titles, you want a title that people will remember, because that's when you get the word of mouth. But
that's right. Yeah. And I wondered if the publishing company, or really my editor at the company, would ask that I spell garden and Edin in the traditional way, but she really liked the spelling and the play on words, so she let me keep it. So I was really thrilled about that.
Yeah, because from a marketing standpoint, you kind of have the best of both worlds, because you have the play on words, but you also sort of have a biblical tie-in, or tie-in to Christian fiction without saying it's Christian fiction.
Exactly.
And that's always better from a promo branding standpoint. And people will remember, because who can forget the Garden of Eden?
Right. Thank you. I love when people get it. So thank you for getting it.
So it was something you had in your bio that I wanted to ask you about. The second book. So this is part of a series.
Yes. So I'm excited to share. So really, just with the release of this first book that came out last week, I'm allowed to say now that the series will be called The Gardins of Eden. And book 2, we haven't shared that title yet, but book 2 will come out in spring 2025.
Okay. All right, that's great. Now, you're going to have more than 2 books, or that's
we'll see. We're working through that. Yeah, we'll see. I've got ideas, but we'll see.
Okay.
And to be transparent, when I wrote The Gardens of Eden, the first book, I didn't have any plans for it to be a series. I thought, I think it's really great that there's some authors who write series. That's not really my thing. I don't have those types of ideas. This is going to be a standalone. But as I worked through the story and saw where it was going, I said, oh my gosh, yeah, we're going to have to do another one, because I think, there's going to be some growth, but there's going to be some more things that happen that I think will be really interesting. And I think, people will really love this family and want to know what happens next with them.
Yeah, that's the thing about when you write fiction. I'm an author too. And I have a variety of books, but I have a series that's a novel. I have children's books. I have a variety of books, but I do have a 2-book series, second of which just came out. And what happened when I wrote the first book, I didn't have any plans to
really
have a sequel.
Yeah.
But what happens is when people read the book, if they get into the characters, like they will with your book, they want to know what happens to them.
What happens next? Yeah.
And they identify with them as real people.
And I
So
love, that's one of my favorite parts. And so congratulations to you on your second book in that series coming out. But yeah, they start to feel real.
they
And
do.
you know,
They
yeah,
do.
they start to feel real. And so I think that is one of the best compliments that an author can ever get. Because you want your characters to be relatable. You want people to see themselves in them, or you know, people that they know. So I think that's just a fantastic compliment whenever that happens.
Yeah, I agree. So now when you, as part of your public health work,
Mhm.
as a your alter ego as a
My
physician,
alter ego, yes.
um, it sounds like you're doing most of the work you do is at the grassroots.
Yes, absolutely. So, and it's really, really rewarding in that way. For me, everything is about people. Everything's about people. Everything's about community. And so that's something that I think also comes across in the Gardens of Eden too.
Okay, now one of the readers said, "How long did it take you to write the book?"
That's a great question. So I started thinking about it in about 2008. But really just, you know, so in 2008, it just kind of popped in my head that I wanted to write a book that answers the question of what happened after the stories told in the Bible. But it really just took me some years to kind of think about it and figure out kind of what the story would be about and which characters it would focus on. And so in December of 2019 is when I started planning the book. So we call that plotting. So I did that for a few weeks in December. That spilled over a little bit into January 2020. But I wrote most of the book between January 2020 and the first half of February 2020. One of the great things about working for myself is that I control my own schedule. So I was able to kind of plan my work so that I took advantage of the fact that frequently in January, it can be a little bit slow depending on how I schedule things. So I kind of worked ahead in December and cleared some time for myself in January to try to write as much of that first draft as I could in January, but it spilled over into February, which is still a
Of the
big
same year.
undertaking for a debut
So
author, but yeah,
yeah, so
it's a
basically
lot.
in 60 days you wrote it.
About, I mean, we'll say 60, but it was about a month and a half.
Oh,
Now that first
that's quick.
draft was rough. It was a very rough first draft. It had lots of holes in it. Some small holes, but probably one or two really big holes. And when I say holes, I mean like there's a whole scene where I knew this is what I was thinking would happen, but I wasn't sure if it would work, if it would fit. So I just wrote like 2 lines in that space and just kept writing the rest of it. And I think that's okay. You know, people sometimes refer to the first draft as that messy first draft, right? And I think especially, first of all, I don't think anyone should put any hard boundaries or on our schedule on themselves. You know, I did that because that was what my work schedule allowed. And I said, hey, let me see what I can do in this month that I've carved out. But of course, I had to still make some allowances and be flexible and spend a bit more time. And so I think, you know, we shouldn't put too much pressure on ourselves. We can set a goal, but also, you know, engage in some self-care and be flexible and reasonable.
That's true because if you write all the time, which we have a lot of people on the show that are, doing 2 books or 3 books a year,
Mm-hmm.
then you have more of a routine
Right.
of writing. And so you kind of, I think if you do that kind of writing, you really have it figured out in terms
Yeah.
of the process.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't, then, you have to do what works for you.
Do what works for you, yeah. And I'm a debut author, so I'm not here to say that I have it all figured out. I can tell you what I did. I'm very thankful. There was a lot of prayer that went into my being able to do that, but also a lot of time at a computer, and really just kind of I call it being in my writing cave. I watched some television in the beginning of that. and read some books and things, but largely I was really just kind of hunkered down, as they say, just writing.
So before we go, I'm trying to see. Someone said they're going to get the book, and
Oh, that's
this
great.
show will circulate. It circulates very well for a good 10 days, and so
Okay.
um, a lot of people will see it. We have people who watch it live, and then we have
Mhm.
another huge audience of people who watch it at their leisure or parts of it, whatever.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoy talking with you, and you are fun to talk with, and I love talking to people who get it.
Well, I think when I saw the book and the book cover, I said that my first response in my head was, "That is really clever." So,
Thank you.
I congratulate you on
Thank you.
doing that. That's really, I haven't seen anybody do it exactly like that.
Well, I appreciate that so much.
And good luck with everything that you're doing with this book, getting it out there. It is getting out there. It is.
Thank
I
you.
saw a lot of it um, from when it was coming out,
Mhm.
from the debut day to now. So I'm sure you're going to be seeing even more. And the people that a lot of my people on my Facebook, Facebook is where I am mostly.
Mhm.
They are avid readers, or they're writers, they're authors, they're publishers, they're people in the literary field.
Mhm.
So the word of mouth that gets around, it gets around to the right people. Didn't you have like an endorsement statement from somebody, a high profile author? Did you have that?
I did. Are you talking about from KJ Dell'Antonia, who wrote The Chicken Sisters? I had one from her. I
Okay.
have one from Melissa Scholes Young, Robin W. Pearson,
That one.
Patricia
Robin.
Raybon.
Okay,
Yeah,
Robin. That's
Robin. Yes, Robin has been very, very good to me. We are always supporting each other on social media, but it's she 3 books in now. Her third book comes out next month. So she's like a author big sister to me. So if you're
well.
watching, thank you, Robin.
Well, congratulations, Rosey, and thank you for being a guest on the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and I hope everyone stays warm and stays safe.
Same here, because it's cold in Houston, and if it's cold
Ooh,
in Houston, that means it's cold everywhere.
yes, yes, yes.
So,
Take care.
okay, same to you. Have a good night.
Thank you.